Kimberly, thank you for that. Kimberly Halkett live there at the White House. Let's discuss this further now with Laicie Heeley, who's editor-in-chief of the national security publication Inkstick. Laicie is joining us from Washington. Thank you so much for your time. So what do you make of this proposed increase in the budget, Laicie? What specific threats or strategic goals justify an increase of such a magnitude?
Thank you so much for having me. Well, I want to push back just a little bit on one thing that was said, which is that this is just this seems to be happening in light of everything of the Iran war and what's happening in Iran. This is a lot more money than we need for the Iran war, first of all. Second of all, this is not how we've budgeted for wars in the past. In the past, this is why we have an almost $1 trillion annual military budget to begin with. And that's where our money for wars is supposed to come from. And prior to the Bush years, we actually did budget wars out of that base budget. We started, however, now doing what the Trump administration wants to do, which is passing emergency funding, which is above and beyond. So they want not only that emergency funding, but then this additional $1.5 trillion per year, which would be a permanent increase to the military budget, which is going far above and beyond anything that we need for any current war, and is also almost doubling the budget from what it is today.
If, as you say, Laicie, this increase is not driven by the immediate conflict, the Iran war, then what is driving it?
What's driving this is the priorities of the administration. Trump campaigned as the peace president. He said no new wars. However, this is an administration that has been very focused on war, even changing the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War, and this is a war budget. This supports that. This cuts domestic priorities like education. It cuts money for the CDC and the EPA, and it includes a massive increase to the military budget, which really just shows where the priorities are lying for this administration.
Tell us more about the impact for international audience, especially if non-defense spending is reduced by around 10%. Which programs are the most vulnerable, and what real-world impacts would Americans likely feel first?
One thing that I really want to point out is that historically, the State Department, money for diplomacy, things that prevent us from going to war, has really been underfunded. And this budget would continue to cut that. So first of all, I think what we can expect from a budget like this is that when you spend a lot of money on war, you get more war. And when you spend a lot less money on things that prevent war, you get more war. So that's what we can expect, first of all. Second of all, there's a lot of cuts to health, education, all of the things that impact Americans day to day. This is in the midst of massive inflation, very high gas prices, given everything going on in the Middle East, and it's going to have a massive impact on Americans just in that sense, were it to be passed. Now we have to remember this is absolutely just a first off proposal from the Trump administration. Congress is still going to make the decision that they want to make, and last year they rejected a lot of these same cuts. So we may expect them to reject these cuts again. Then we have the increase to the national debt, which is just, the national debt has already quadrupled over the past 20 years, and this would only add more money to the national debt. That in and of itself is a national security risk.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the national debt. I mean, it would exceed by $39 trillion, and whether that's fiscally sustainable without corresponding revenue increases.
Absolutely. Fiscally sustainable, and what it says to the rest of the world about the U.S.'s creditworthiness, the strength of the dollar, all of these things can have a huge impact on the future of the U.S. and its ability to continue spending money at this rate. At this point, the interest on the national debt is actually more than the Pentagon budget itself. So were the interest on the national debt to be a department in the United States government, it would be one of the largest. So we really have to think seriously about what path this is putting us on.
Thank you so much, Laicie, for speaking to us about this. Very interesting to hear your thoughts. Laicie Heeley, editor-in-chief of the national security publication Inkstick, joining us there from D.C. Thank you.
Thank you.